everyone. Good afternoon. This is Seher here, and today I'll be representing Polypipe Middle East Water Management Solutions. Thank you all for having me and being here in the audience to listen to runoff to resource from the perspective of spawn cities. Just before I start, however, a quick disclaimer in case I get a little breathless or overwhelmed during the presentation. It's not because the topic is very complicated. It's because I'm carrying a little extra water myself, which is taking up most of my lung space. So please just ignore that. For those of you who've not dealt with Polypipe before or has met our experts, we are a leading solution provider for water management and climate solutions in the Middle East and back in the UK. Before we get on to the concept of spawn cities and talk about how they mitigate, let's try to just go back a little bit and understand where the issue of stormwater runoff has even begun. So initially, let's say like 20 years ago, in the last 20 years, GCC has nearly doubled in population due to the great economic development that we've had, which is great for the country, for the people, for the development, etc. But what this has done is that it has taken something that looked like this, the natural environment, to something that now looks like this, that is the urban environment. When we had the natural environment, water was able to follow its natural course, follow its natural cycle, go back into the ground or to the river, and then rain again. However, with increased modern urbanization, or what we like to refer to as concretization, along with the climate change and the other pollutants and everything that has come in picture, what we notice is that now there's no place for water to run off. Because of the concrete, the water very swiftly runs off the surfaces, collects pollutants on the way, and goes and meets into our traditional water courses. Now, this poses a problem because it is not only causing environmental threats, but also causing an effect to our resources and an effect to the existing and the new infrastructure and the utilities that we bring up. The impact of stormwater runoff is not at all a new conversation. A very good example of this we've seen recently in April 24, I believe, where we had tremendous amounts of rain and we saw what stormwater runoff could actually do. There was a lot of flooding, lot of dirty water everywhere, foul odor. But how did this affect the country or the city itself? There was a lot of damage to public and private property. We saw a lot of developers having to take up that responsibility eventually after everything got over. We saw a lot of concerns to public health and safety in terms of rising cases of various waterborne diseases in the hospitals, and also definitely concerns about people drowning or any of those kind of things. Also, eventually what happened is that there was a lot of costs that had to be put into this treatment of this stormwater, and also having to remove the water from the roads and the infrastructure, etc. This slowed down business. It was all, messed up for a couple of days, etc. So, we get the gist of why and how the stormwater impacts and why it needs to really be worried about. And even though we do understand that stormwater runoff causes all of these issues, and we try to go and design around these systems, the existing modern urbanization has posed certain challenges that now need to be rectified when designing spawn cities itself. Like I mentioned already, the increased number of impervious surfaces has basically made stormwater runoff not have a place to go. So that is something we'll have to consider when we are designing for more sustainable environments. We have limited networks or a stress on the existing network because these were all designed keeping in mind some pre-developed areas, and with the climate change, now we are not able to, match the rainfall intensity to the network, the limited networks that we have. And finally, the groundwater table. If you've noticed these days, a lot of projects experience high groundwater levels, high groundwater tables, and this is because of the disturbance that we've caused to the natural cycle of water. Also, that because of the development, we have a lot of water from various other regions running into your plot, per se. So you could consider like irrigation water, etc., all also becoming part of the groundwater level. So just these kind of things that now we'll have to keep in mind while creating spawn cities. So what do you mean by spawn cities, right? As the name suggests, it's basically to create cities and communities that act like sponge, and they can absorb the water to either dispose it off safely or reuse it as per what we desire to do. Now, there are two main design principles that we can follow to create spawn cities, one being soakaways and the other being retention, like retention systems. Soakaways traditionally are meant to capture the rainwater, filter it, and slowly discharge it into the surrounding soil. The reason of the slow discharge being that it should not oversaturate the soil that is on our plot, all right? And also not overwhelm our traditional drainage systems that exist. Just to keep in mind that while designing these soakaways for spawn cities, we need to ensure that there is some sort of pre-filtration systems that get all the unwanted particles out. For example, you have sand and silt that collects with stormwater runoff. There can be garbage, trash, heavy metals, etc., which would not be good for the surrounding soil or cause soil pollution on your plot itself. Similar to soakaways, retention also follows a similar design policy. However, the only difference is that instead of releasing the water back into the soil, we would be able to reuse this water for other purposes. As a whole, what this helps us do is basically reduce flood risk. That is the number one thing that we are trying to intend at. It helps give you some sort of water security. It increases the return on investment on our projects because you have water that was going to waste now being reused for some other purposes. And definitely reduces the demand for desalination of other water. I'm not sure if you have heard of this upcoming term called SUDS. SUDS is part of spawn cities. It translates to sustainable urban drainage systems. And the reason why there is this shift is because when we were assessing like traditional drainage systems, traditional stormwater management systems, we found out that it was not as efficient in terms of its life cycle and the cost that it presents. Okay, for example, if we take the example of gravel soakaways, for instance, they are kind of being pushed out of the market for various reasons, which is like their particle sizes being too small, which collects sand and silt very easily. It cannot be maintained or accessed quite significantly as compared to the other solutions that are available in the market now. And because of the size of the gravel soakaways itself, it's not efficient as efficient as other solutions to put in your building footprint. It requires a lot of space. For instance, if you were to use gravel soakaways, you would get a maximum void ratio of 30%, which means that if you had 100 cubic meters of gravel soakaway, only 30 cubic meters of that would be water. So now imagine the kind of footprint you would need to capture enough stormwater from a particular design. In opposed to that, we have more sustainable drainage systems, particularly now the ones that are coming up in the market. Those are plastic soakaway systems. They are typically made of high-strength polypropylene or HDPE, etc., and they allow for scalability, permeability, and easy installation because of the way it's designed. It's super durable. It's like modular cells that you can just place like Lego and attach to each other to create the huge spaces that you need. It offers a 95% void ratio in comparison to other soakaways that I've mentioned earlier. So a 95% void ratio, meaning if you had 100 cubic meters of these soakaways or these cells, 95 of that cubic meters would actually be water, and the rest of it would be used for any of the infrastructure, like the space would be used for any of the infrastructure utilities or anything else that the building footprint needs. This is like a multifunctional geocellular system that is proven its functionality over the years. It can be placed under trafficked area as well because it's something that is structurally designed and engineered. And with the help of our team, we do the structural calculations and everything and advise our design consultants and clients where it can be used. We can just look at a couple of examples of how far we've gone with these systems to create ideas of spawn cities. Here is a very recent example from when we had created a soakaway tank of 13,000 cubic meters. This was post-April 2024, so it had gone back into redesign after the rains. We recalculated all the volumes, etc., and the entire tank is placed under the landscape areas of a residential community. It infiltrates all the water and replenishes the natural groundwater table. Similar to that, not just in infrastructure, these cells are also easily usable on other parts of your projects. For example, here we used it on a roof for a hospitality project. It was spread across 9,000 square meters of 17 buildings, and all the water that is collected is retained on the roof for, let's say, around like 1 or 2 hours, and then taken out and slowly discharged to use for other purposes on site. This had also given the project a lot of points for sustainability because they're able to use up huge volumes of water for other purposes like irrigation, like cleaning landscape areas, all of those, etc. Moving forward, these systems can actually be integrated with smarter technologies. We can have IoT sensors put into these systems to monitor the stormwater quality itself and manage the stormwater in real time. We need to understand that 55% of today's population actually lives in cities. So to create resilient cities that are truly resilient, we must incorporate smart technology into communities now itself. These will come with multifunctional benefits, including like rooftop amenities, which would yield higher return on investment. And not just that, saving water and creating these areas also helps contain the temperature of the urban environment for now and for the evolution of our modern communities. Initially, our communities were usually designed with gray infrastructure that was pipes, tunnels, gutters, etc. However, that is not feasible anymore with the rising consumption of water that we have, and not just that it is not feasible in that context, but it is also very, very harmful as it takes up sand, silt, harmful chemicals, etc., and takes it away from the communities, but disposes it off into our waterways. Transforming runoff to resource will need a collaboration from governments, clients, citizens. We need investment in that, and we need the support to create more sustainable urban systems. We know that it comes with the perception that green infrastructure and sustainable design is very expensive. However, not doing anything about it will prove to be even more expensive when you go into the future. The blue and green designs form the business plans of the future. They form the business plans for our planet. So it's super crucial because the planet gives us back a healthy space to live, a healthy space to breathe and work and do everything else. So we just need to keep in mind that there's no green without blue, and this is something that needs to be considered and strategically implemented to not be a sideline cost, but be part of the strategy from the beginning itself. Thank you so much. I have about 4 seconds now, so if anyone has any questions, I will take it at stand 17, Polypipe. Thank you.